Welcome to Part of the Arts with me, Rebecca Godden, where we explore the diverse and dynamic world of creativity. In today's episode, we're joined with BA Todd, an indie filmmaker based in Florida, USA. Britt has worn many hats in the film industry, from producing and assistant directing to working in the art department and camera operating. Her experience spans a wide range of projects, including commercials, immersive attractions, live sports, documentaries, and indie feature and short films. Phew, how does she have the time? Not only does Britt bring her talents to various roles in the industry, she also collaborates with friends to create her own short indie films. Amazing. Tune in as we dive into her journey and the experiences across different areas of filmmaking that really fuel her passion for independent cinema. Enjoy. Hi, Brittany.
Hi.
Welcome to Part of the Art.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me and kind of zooming into us from Florida in the US.
Yeah.
So exciting. You're my first international guest.
Oh, am I? Okay, sweet.
Yeah. No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
But that's like super exciting for me. So I'm super happy to have you here. Thank you so much. And for making the time zones and everything. What time are we talking to you there?
It's 10:19 in the morning.
Nice. So it's 3:19 p.m. here. So I'm getting towards the end of my work day. You're my last guest of the day, which is lovely. For a bit of context, just for our listeners, me and Brittany have known each other since I was 15. So
so I would have been 16, I think.
Yeah. So that's like how many? Oh my gosh, that's a lot. It's like 17, 18 years.
Crazy. It's almost 20. Isn't that scary?
That makes me feel old.
Yeah, I feel that.
Oh my gosh, it makes me feel so old. So yeah, I was lucky enough to go on an American exchange, and it was with Brittany's sister, Brianna.
Yeah.
So I got to live in their household in New Jersey, which is where you lived at the time. I was 6, and I got to experience American life and culture for a month, which was insane.
Crazy, I'm sure.
It was it was amazing. It's like a culture shock, but in a good way. And I feel like what a great exchange to have where you don't actually have to speak a different language.
Yeah, true.
It makes it a bit easier, maybe a bit more fun for like 15, 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
And me and Brittany still talk like constantly on Instagram and stuff. So it's like so nice that we've kept that connection, like together creatively as well.
Yeah, I love that.
And talking about creativity, I've asked you to think about a little icebreaker today of often in the industry, we are either oversharers or we kind of just say the first thing that comes out of our mouths without necessarily thinking. And then we can often also overthink after the fact. So have you kind of got a scenario or anything that happens that kind of sounds familiar to those experiences?
I think just in general, a lot of times, I grew up with brothers and stuff like that too. So when I'm on set and it's a bunch of guys, like it doesn't faze me. And sometimes they'll say things that they probably shouldn't say around me.
Yes.
And they'll be surprised if I crack a joke back at them, And then I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have let the mask dip a little.
I mean, give as good as you get, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
I think they're always shocked. They're like, oh.
Like, okay, she bit back or she got in on the joke and wasn't offended.
Yeah.
I love that. It must be like there must be like a level of camaraderie on a film set.
Yeah.
But
I think it's like
a level of like banter and things that go on.
Definitely
right?
that. Yeah, so much banter. Like I think you kind of make these little mini like families or something. Especially it depends on like how long is it? Is it a feature film? You're probably there for several weeks to maybe over a month or two, so you kind of like get to know people more. And, I tend to like look at the people on set as like, oh, they're like my little brother or my little sister, so yeah, I think you just get this level of like making jokes with each other, and you obviously would know if it was like appropriate. I'm not gonna day one make an inappropriate joke back at guy, but if it's like day 11 or something and they say something snarky, I might snap back.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah,
I've got a dry sense of humor. I'm quite sarcastic.
yeah,
That can often not always land with people.
yeah,
And I have had to teach myself, I think again, it's an age thing, isn't it? Almost
yeah,
like relearn like etiquette of jokes and be like, if I don't know that person very well, I don't know
yeah,
if they understand sarcasm or if they appreciate it. So maybe I won't.
yeah,
I'll get to know them first before I just go in. But sometimes it does just slip out, like I'm very dry or very sarcastic. And then they
yeah.
just think I'm being rude. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not a horrible person, I promise.
No, I totally get that because I'm from the Northeast, like New Jersey is very different to Florida. So Florida is like very slower paced.
Yeah.
I think the South kind of has this, you know, they're obsessed with like hospitality or whatever. So I think sometimes the dry, sarcastic jokes of the Northeast don't always land down here. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't being a bitch for real. Like, you know what I mean?
I was
So
joking.
yeah, yeah.
So funny you say that actually, because my husband has a lot of American colleagues from like
Okay.
various places, and he does actually find that yeah, there are nuances. And I do remember him saying like, "Oh,
Yeah.
people from the New York office get my sarcasm or my dry sense of humor,
Yeah.
but people from like say yeah, like Florida or somewhere else on the other side of the coast don't quite get it." And I said
Yeah.
to him, "Well, that rings true because my friends are from New Jersey and they get my humor." So I was like that,
Yeah.
and they also are sarcastic. So I was like, that is completely a cultural kind of thing there, isn't it?
Yeah. Isn't that so weird? I don't know. I don't know where that comes from, but yeah, it's just funny. Like it's very regional.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I guess regional in the US and regional in England are
Oh
two
yeah.
very different things because
Yeah.
we're so small compared to you. So
Yeah.
it most British people just are either sarcastic or love a moan. So we we all get that. We all kind of get that.
Yeah.
But I get there are differences in the north and south parts of the country.
Okay.
I feel like Southerners have got a reputation for being rude and
Okay.
being quite quite blunt and just quite miserable. I mean, I don't
Okay.
obviously find miserable. And then Northerners have like a reputation for being really friendly, like
Okay.
bubbly, but then also a little bit angry.
Yeah.
Passionate. I
Interesting.
think Northerners are more passionate, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
again,
Southerners are more abrasive.
like, yeah, maybe we just get stuff done. Um,
Yeah.
very like they don't have the nicety. But then again, that's a massive sweeping generalization.
Of course.
Everyone you meet is completely different, and everyone you see. And talking about people you see and things you see, I wonder if you've seen or watched or listened to something recently that left you with like a spark, left you with a buzz.
Ooh, yeah. So, okay, one of the things I've been doing this year is volunteering with a film festival. So, last year a film that I had made played at the festival, and this year I didn't have one to submit. So I thought, oh well, why don't I just volunteer? So,
Ah,
I've been yeah, it's been really cool. I've been judging some of the films that are coming in, and I there were there's probably like 4 documentaries that I can think of off the top of my head that I watched and judged. I was on the
mm,
jury, and they definitely stuck with me. I don't know how much I'm allowed to really say about them because I'm still not
NBA what?
sure. Yeah, I don't know who's the final, like films that made it into the festival, but
Yeah.
I have my fingers crossed for a few of them for sure. I love documentaries so much. I love narrative, of course, too. Like who doesn't
Mm,
love to just escape, right?
yeah.
But yeah, documentaries, even if it's not a historical or educational documentary, you can learn so much about the human experience.
Mm.
And that always gives me a spark. So
I
yeah.
love that. And I love that, from one year being there, submitting a film, to another
Yeah.
year being a spectator, like it's such a different experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
Huge.
and it must be quite nice being on the other side. Was it a bit more relaxing in a way?
Okay, that's how I expected it to go, but
Yeah.
I think when it came to having to, like, give the axe to a couple of the films, I felt so horrible. I felt so
Pressure.
guilty. Yeah, the pressure to just be like, "Oh, like, I can tell they had their heart in it and everything, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna work for this program." And I
It's not
felt so.
there.
Yeah, which of course gives you insight to, like, when you're in the process again, once I am submitting the next film, to maybe not take it as personal sometimes. If I
Yeah.
don't make it in, sometimes it's not because you didn't have a good film, it just doesn't fit with the program,
Yeah.
So,
That's the art, a lot of the arts, isn't it? It's not
yeah,
necessarily because, if you're an actor, for example, and you're going for a part, it's not
yeah,
necessarily that you weren't talented enough. It's just you were not
yeah,
what they were looking for. You just did not fit the character. And it must be the
yeah,
same with like film submissions when you're submitting them to festivals and
yeah,
awards and things. Sometimes they just might not fit within
yeah.
the category or the genre or the criteria.
Yeah, because when it comes to the festivals, especially short films, they only have so much time per like
Yeah.
short film block. So it's also okay, let's say it's a drama block. We have, I don't know, 200 submissions, right? So out of those 200 submissions, it's not just like what's a great film, what's gonna, leave people walking away thinking about it, but also how does that line up with the rest of the films that you want to include in that block? And is there enough time for everybody's film?
Yeah.
Sometimes someone's film might be, I don't know, 5 minutes too long to fit in the
Mm,
block. And you're like, oh, I really wanted to include that. But if I include that, then I have to cut 2 other films. So I think I'm gaining a huge appreciation for festival directors and what it takes
mhm.
to program a festival.
Oh my gosh. Curating and programming
Yes.
any sort of performance event
Yeah.
and I'm talking from first-hand experience here because I do it for theatre.
Yeah.
I've produced theatre festivals and produced and directed and curated, kind of theatre platforms where we get groups
Yeah.
together, and then again you've got to slot them into a program. I've got a running
Yeah.
time. My show cannot be longer than like 45-minute
Yeah.
act one, 20-minute interval, maximum an hour act two, but we don't really want to go
Yeah.
and you've got to make sure you're slotting them in. And again, it's that like, if your piece is too long, it's not gonna fit in that. And that's super hard, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm enjoying it though. I like it.
Good. It's nice, like getting an insight from the other side. And,
Yeah.
obviously you are an independent filmmaker
Yeah.
yourself. So like, tell us about that process. Like, how does that work? How does one go about doing what you call like your job, like what you do for your living?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I think there's like two parts really, right? So there's the films that I make, like I don't make any money off of them. So they're not like for my living, but they're just some people buy a house.
Mhm.
I'm making a film. You know what I
I
mean?
love that.
Uh, yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the gist of it when it comes to making your own stuff. You just have, whether it's you writing it or a friend or a partner, whatever your little production company is, someone coming up with a really good script, and then you assemble a team to make it
Mhm.
happen. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of like creative problem solving that goes into that. Mainly when it comes to the films that I'm making, or at least the last 3, I've been like producing and ADing, so assistant directing.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of logistical and operations and um, creative problem solving that goes into that. And then I've made documentaries as well where it's kind of like you with this podcast, right? Where I'm like doing it all,
Yeah.
like even the editing and stuff. So those
Passion
are going to
project.
take, yeah, those passion projects for sure take
Mm,
way longer.
yeah.
So, yeah. And then I freelance, right? So that's the second part of it, right? So I'll go be like a hired gun essentially on someone else's film and someone else's dream or whether it's their passion project or they've had an investor that wants to make this film or whatever, I just get hired and I go
Yeah.
have fun for a few weeks, So yeah.
And that's really lovely, isn't it? Because it's like you're making a living doing what you love, then you are
Yeah.
also supplementing your passion with that living. But isn't it great
Yeah.
to be able to do the freelancing film gigs to make your
Yeah.
own work and not be doing I know you have had like office jobs
Yeah.
and things, or hospitality jobs and things like that. Like, do you
Yeah.
find that it's better for your soul doing it this way than having those, different world jobs that supplement your income?
That's a really good question. I think monetarily, the office job, it made things a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
So I was really it's kind of like a freelance position as well, because I was a
Mhm.
contract, um I was like a project coordinator.
Mhm.
So I was working in a creative adjacent field, so I still felt like I had that pull, that
Yeah.
like I cared about the projects. It wasn't like I'm working in manufacturing and I don't give a shit about this machine or
Yeah,
something,
yeah, you actually cared. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was like, "Oh, cool, we're doing something this month with you know, uh, a museum or a theme park or something." So
Mhm.
that was cool. But then I got laid off, unfortunately.
Right.
So that was like after 2 years of working in that, it was like, "Okay, well, now what?"
What's
And
next?
that's when I kind of, mainly through just necessity, started doing the
Mhm.
freelancing more full on. It's still not full-time work for me, so I have picked up restaurant work just to kind of
Mhm.
supplement in between gigs.
Yeah.
Um and I definitely can tell you that when I do get to go on the freelance gig, that fuels my like soul and my brain to be able to go back. Like, when I have to go back into the restaurant, I'm like, it's okay. In a couple
Yeah.
more weeks, we got another gig. Like, we're gonna
Yeah.
go do some cool shit. So yeah.
You're very like me in that respect. I think we're quite similar in
Yeah.
that we will do anything to kind of get
Yeah.
by and to make sure we can supplement and make our art. And
Yeah.
I've always been like that. I'm a doer. If I need to
Yeah.
go and wait tables or be a barista or walk dogs or do
Yeah.
whatever, I will do it so that, like you said, because I know in a month's time or a couple of weeks' time, I'll be
Yeah.
performing in a site specific piece, or I'll be directing or curating a show or a
Yeah.
festival. And I think the nature of the beast of the arts, especially in the UK, is unfortunately it's not a very sustainable career to just do one thing. You've
Yeah.
got to be a bit of an all-rounder, and it sounds like it's pretty similar in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The freelance jobs, even that I take, like, it's just, hey, what's available, right? So
Yeah,
maybe on one film I'm production managing, but on the next film I'm just a PA.
yeah,
I'm just an assistant, or I'm a runner, or I'm doing art department for this one. And it also depends too on what their budget is, right? Maybe they can't,
mhm,
maybe because of the way their budget is, they need someone that can do like props and wardrobe and a bit of set decoration, but there's no like
everything.
department, yeah, everything, but there's no department head above that, right? So
Yeah,
you do still get, in those instances, you still get a little bit of creative control, because you don't have someone else being like, oh yeah, they want it
do
like
this.
this. It's like you're talking to the director, like, hey, like, what do you want? What do you envision for this? And then you get to help build it. So it just kind of depends.
Yeah, so you do really have to be an all-rounder kind of to make it within your industry.
Yeah, at least especially in Florida. I think
Okay.
maybe if I was living in LA,
Mhm,
it would be a bit different. Which right now in the US, I would say like the big hubs, right? Of course, New York, LA,
mhm.
Atlanta. Some people are saying that there's like a big, thing going down in like Chicago, maybe starting to
Okay.
pop off. So that'll be kind of interesting. I love Chicago.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would ever move to like New York or Atlanta for work. I have thought about the LA thing.
Mhm.
I don't know if like the LA scene is necessarily my scene, but I think I've met a lot of really cool people from there,
Mm.
and maybe I would consider like going for a year just to get
To
more,
see what it's like as well.
yeah, to see what it's like and to maybe get more contacts and more work so that then
Mhm.
I can afford to like, oh, I can just travel anywhere for gigs and I
Yeah.
could still maybe have a home base in Florida or somewhere else,
Mm.
So
How
I don't know.
far I'm very naive with my
No,
American geography. I apologize. I have been to
no, that's
places,
okay.
into many places in America, but it's been a while, and I've
Yeah.
not really traveled between them. How
Yeah.
far is LA from Florida? Like plane ride?
So plane ride, I want to say it's probably like maybe 5, 6 hours, I would
Okay.
guess. Cause I think that's about how long it took for me to get from Florida to San Diego, which is where my
Mhm.
brother lives.
Yeah,
So I'm assuming it'd probably be around that.
around the
So
same. Yeah.
yeah.
And I bet, like, if you did go to LA and you tried it, like, you'd find your people. I
Yeah.
think or obviously over here, we see the LA life and the
Yeah.
LA lifestyle and the Hollywood, and I know what you
Yeah.
mean. It is this kind of cookie cutter. This is an
Yeah.
LA person, but like, I'm sure there is some really cool artsy creatives that
Yeah.
don't conform to selling sunset vibes. As much as
Exactly.
I love that show, I love me a bit of trash
Yeah.
TV every now and then. So I
Same.
actually do watch that and I love it. I'm not like shaming that show at all. Um,
Yeah.
but that's what we see, isn't it, of
Yeah.
LA. Um,
Definitely.
so I'm sure there would be, yeah, you'd find your tribe, as it were. You'd find
Yeah.
then actually asked you, like, why Florida? Why did you move from New Jersey to Florida?
Okay, so
If you don't
Florida,
mind,
it's
start answering.
no, I don't mind. It's kind of funny. So basically, Bridget and I were, in community college and
Yeah.
we wanted to be able to finish our degree and get a
Mhm.
bachelor's. And it was just so expensive in Jersey. So
Mhm.
what happened was I was supposed to go to Drexel University, which is in Philly.
Yeah.
And like I was accepted, I had a roommate, had all my stuff picked out. And then like a week before I got denied for my student loan, they were like,
Oh my
they were,
god.
they were like, absolutely not. We're not giving you $40,000 for the year, which I mean, in hindsight, I'm like, thank the universe or
Yeah.
whatever's up there. Like, thankfully I didn't because I would be in a massive amount of debt, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so I think the universe is looking out for me, but
Mhm.
after that
Didn't
happened,
feel like it at the
obviously,
time. Didn't feel like it at the
no,
time.
I was so bummed and I was like, oh, like we're never going to finish college. Like if we can't afford it. So
Mm.
a friend of mine was like, hey, you can go move to another state and live there for a year and get in-state residency. And then you can go to a college, in a different state.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, I wonder like where are like
Where can I
some
live?
really cheap, yeah, like where can I live? Like what's cheap school tuitions?
Mm.
And I think it was like 6,000 a year in Florida. So I mean, you're talking about a massive difference,
Wow.
40,000, 6,000. And we had gone on a few family vacations to Florida. And I was like, I love Florida.
You're like, I like Florida. It's hot. Let's go there.
Yeah, I was like, summer all year round. I don't
Yeah.
have to shovel snow. Like, let's do it. This is great. Like, so
Why it's so
I
different because
know.
like New Jersey, like you do like here, you get the seasons. You get
Yeah.
really cold and you get really hot, don't you? You do actually get the seasons. Whereas
You get the full
Florida,
spectrum.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's not that much of a climate shock to go to New Jersey from the UK. There's
Yeah.
still a bit more extreme. You get it colder and you get it hotter.
True. Yeah.
But like Florida, it's just dry, isn't it?
It's well, you know what? It's like it's actually very humid.
Oh,
It's
is
like,
it? Okay.
yeah, okay. So like the West Coast, that's where it would be a dry heat.
Right.
But like down in Florida, it's and obviously there's like a range of how humid it gets
Yeah,
throughout the
yeah,
year.
yeah.
Like that's their version of a season, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's less humid and there's like a breeze, you know?
Oh, spring.
Yeah. So there's that. But yeah, like it's very humid. You'll go out in like, I don't know, maybe July, August, and
Yeah.
it feels thick. Like the air, like
Yeah.
you feel like you're like, oh, I can feel the air, you know?
Yeah, like walking
It's
through it.
wet. Yeah, like you're walking through it and like your clothes might get a little damp, you know?
Yeah. So
Your hair, and I have curly hair, so
me too.
frizz.
It'd be
Yeah.
like literally like
Yeah.
so Monica from Friends when she just gets her hair braided because it's like because she just can't cope with the fringe. That would
Yes.
be
You get used to it. Like I will say, like, because I've been here since I think we first moved in 2012. And
ages now.
yeah, and I still was going back in the summers to work in New Jersey. And then in 2015, that's when I, was able to finally go to school here, and I stopped going back. And I only went like what, 2 years ago for Brianna's baby shower. That was my first time back in years. So yeah.
How was
crazy.
that? Was it nice to go back home?
It was nice.
Yeah.
It was such a short weekend, and it was right after I had got laid off. So I was a little bit like,
Yeah.
a bit like bummed, but it
And, like,
was like,
nostalgic.
yeah, it was very nostalgic. Like it was nice. Like we got to go to the boardwalk, and I hadn't been in so long. So
Yeah. Oh, I remember
it was
the
nice.
boardwalk. And for context,
Yes.
we're talking like you know who we're on about. So
yeah.
Brittany has two sisters who are called all the bees, Bridget
Yes.
and Brianna. So that's who we're like referencing. It's like the Kardashians,
Yes.
but the Todd.
The Todds, yeah. Oh, that's so
All
funny.
with names with B. We love it. Not all of you, but
I know.
three of you.
3 of us.
Yeah, three of you. So talking about like the climate and the kind of the weather in Florida, that must be
yeah.
quite a tough atmosphere to film in. I can
Yeah,
imagine.
so yeah, it's very interesting. You have to really like, one of the things whenever we're gonna schedule a film, we'll look at the Farmer's Almanac to see what is it supposed to be like during this time of year, like historically, right? Because Florida, we have hurricane season, so obviously you don't want to have to shoot anything, and you don't want to have to fly anywhere, which unfortunately we learned the hard way last year. We had gotten into a film festival, and we couldn't go because it was supposed to be a hurricane. So we had to cancel everything, and we didn't get to go. So it's like, oh, that's a bummer. But yeah, the main thing is the rain, right? So even when it's not hurricane season, we just have like certain parts of the day where it's just gonna rain. And it's not like Jersey where if it's raining all day and it's raining everywhere. No.
Which
it's
is
like it's
here.
raining. Yes, which I have grown up to feel is normal, right?
Not in Florida.
Like that's normal. No, in Florida, like you could have half of the city, it's raining. And then over here on the other half, no rain. You can literally see where the rain starts and stops. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have to factor for that. If you're shooting outdoors, like how quickly are you going to lose light? The other thing that is like huge here is really a sound issue, because so many flights go in and out of Florida every day. So you're constantly hold for plane, Oh, it's crazy.
All of those environmental factors that like I don't think everyone thinks about when they're watching a film. Do you know what I mean? We're not thinking about, okay, well, they've shot there, so they're gonna have to contend with all of that stuff. I mean, like we kind of know that it happens, but you don't really hear people chatting about it. And I love to hear about the kind of behind the scenes stuff. And your film, your work do also take you to different places of the US, like different areas of the country, don't they? Like see you on your Instagram jet setting and going on to different film locations every now and then.
Yeah, so that most of the films that like I'm creating, they're here in Florida, right? But I have gone on to some other film sets that are in different areas. I'm getting ready to actually go to Canada in 2 weeks.
Have you been before?
So I went one time for like a day when we were in Maine. We were just like, let's go over the border, and everything was closed. So I didn't really experience anything serious.
Now you're going to go back and see Canada.
Yeah, I'm excited. So that one is just a live sports event, and I'm going to be a PA for that. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll go to Ottawa. I've never been.
That's
so yeah,
so
I'm
cool.
excited.
I think when like your work takes you to different places, well, for me
Yeah.
personally, I get very excited. I love
Yes.
experiencing a different culture, and that doesn't have to be outside of your own country. I
Yeah.
know UK is a lot smaller than the US, but even so, even if I get to go to
Yeah.
Manchester or Birmingham or to a city that I don't go to very often, it's really
Yeah.
nice, especially if you're there for like a week or a prolonged period of time. You start to
Yeah.
feel like a bit of a local, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's like an adventure. And then you're like, okay, what can I experience here that isn't like touristy?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
And then if you're working with people that are from there as well, you always get that kind of inside
Yes.
scoop, and you
Inside
get
scoop.
taken around. Yeah, and you get taken around by the locals. And you're like, oh, I'm working
Yeah.
here. I've got the locals bringing me round. And
Yeah.
where's the best location you've like shot a film on? And that doesn't have to be like
Mm.
place, but like where you were thinking, okay, this looks beautiful. This is working. Like,
Oh,
do you have
that's such a
one?
good question. I just got off of a film that was shot here in Florida, ironically, but
Yeah.
it was about an hour north of where I live, right on the coast. And
Is that beautiful beach hut?
yes, it was so beautiful.
Oh,
Every morning, like so I kind of wasn't minding the early call times because I was seeing the sunrise,
oh my gosh.
over the water. And I just, sit out there with my tea for like, 20 minutes and just
I
soak it
know.
in.
You teased us all on Instagram with it. I was like, where are you? This is gorgeous.
No, I wanted to stay there. I was like, can I get like a week here on my own? I was like, this is beautiful. So
Just
yeah,
a
that
little
was
like
gorgeous.
retreat. Can I just like
Yeah.
take myself away?
Definitely. And then the other places that I've been in the past year have been really for film festivals. So touring my own film.
Yeah.
So I'm going to all these beautiful, cool places. So right before that film that I just shot for the last 2 weeks, I was in Montana for a week. So yeah,
Get
I got to see
around.
Yellowstone. I
Oh,
know.
cool. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And like
I
kind of like
know.
ticking off those bucket list moments while
Yeah.
working. Is
Yeah,
that quite like a pinch me moment when you do
definitely.
that?
It was, yeah. Like I've always wanted to go to Yellowstone and there's one road that's open in the winter because of the snow and the
Yeah.
ice. So I was like, well, all right, fuck it. Let's go anyway, Like we gotta see it, I saw bison,
Yeah.
elk, and a mom moose and the baby moose.
Oh my
So cute.
God, that's so cute.
I was like, "Oh, this is a dream," Really, really cool. I mean, of course, now I have to get back in the restaurant. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta
And
re-up on that money.
it's that massive juxtaposition, I guess, isn't it? You're kind of living the filmmaking life and dream,
Yeah.
traveling around with your art, and then you're like thumped back down to earth,
Yeah.
waiting to yeah.
I know, isn't that
But
so funny?
no, yeah, it's like it is funny, but it isn't as well.
I know.
Like we laugh through our trauma. It's
I
fine.
know.
We're millennials. It's what we do.
It's what we've always done,
We don't know any different. We don't know any different.
I know.
You touched on film festivals. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm always seeing you at like award ceremonies or film festivals and either
Yeah.
promoting your film or receiving awards for you have received a few notable awards for some of your short films as well. Can you like
Yeah.
tell us about that world? And I'm actually quite interested in how you get to that stage. Like, do you have to
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
apply yourself? Do you have to write award applications? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so basically there's a thing called Film Freeway,
Mhm.
and it's like a database of all of these film festivals that aren't scams. I think they work really hard to make sure there's no scam ones
Are
on
some of
there.
them scams? Is that a thing?
Yeah, some of them are just like money grabs, and then all of a sudden they fall through or they're not a real festival, but they've been promoted to your email or something because they know
Oh,
you're a filmmaker.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's crazy. But for the most part, like it's very reputable, you're gonna have like good film festivals there, but you still have to go through the stats, how many
Mm.
submissions, because they'll tell you, a lot of times they'll tell you like how many submissions they got last year versus how many films they could actually screen,
Mhm.
and then you see the price, right? For like how
Yeah.
much is it for the early bird deadline, the regular deadline, and a late deadline. So depending on when your film finished, where are you falling within that? And is it worth the money? If
Yes.
they're only accepting, if they're accepting less than 10% of the films that are submitted, I'm not going to submit,
Mm.
especially if it's by the late deadline at that point. It's kind of, at that point you're risking just losing money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I haven't like submitted for any like awards, but I have submitted to festivals, and then sometimes we just get lucky and we win a jury award or an audience award. So it's definitely exciting.
It's that kind of like self-submission. You put yourself out there and then see what
Yeah.
comes from it. And there are
Yeah.
two tiers in that. There's like paid for submissions, and then there are public.
No, so all of them, you have to submit. So you're paying for a submission to the film festival. So
Okay.
you're paying for someone to watch your film and decide if they want to screen it at their festival.
Got
And
you.
then, from that you might get the judges, so like the jury awards.
Mm.
That's whoever the festival programmers are. When they watched it, they were like, this is award worthy. So now you're nominated. And then there's the audience awards, which at the actual festival, they'll pick like all of the audiences will vote for like best in show. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And yeah, it must be
Yeah.
quite an exciting atmosphere when you go to those
Yeah.
ceremonies.
I think for me, that's probably the most fulfilling part of the process, because I don't get paid for my own films, right? But when you see the audience reacting to your film, right? When they're gasping at the right moments, or screaming at no, don't go in there, or like they're laughing at the punchline, you're just like, okay, yeah, like I did it, like we made something cool, like it's working, and they're interacting with it. It's probably, I wouldn't care if I got 0 awards if I got those kind of reactions every time.
Those
So yeah.
moments where you're like, this is why I do it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
All of the all of the stress, the months of, post-production, just like trying to find the right music, the right whatever,
Yeah.
and then it all comes together in those like moments. So yeah, it's
I
super
think
cool.
that must be so cool as well. Like I work mainly in theatre, so I,
Yeah.
that's hence why I'm a bit naive about some of the filmmaking, and that I don't do a lot of acting for screen or
Right.
filmmaking. Have dabbled, and I have made a few kind of live art short films, and I did actually
Oh,
submit one
cool.
to a film festival, so I kind of knew how it worked. But
Yeah.
someone sent me all the info and was like, apply for this. I was like, okay. I just did
Yeah.
it. But I had to ask like my camera operator for like all of the specs and everything. So I was like, what am I putting in here? I was like, I don't know I don't know what it's shot in. I directed it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like,
That's why it's so collaborative though, right? Because
yeah,
you had a camera operator, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
that's I think the coolest part about anything in the arts. There's so many people to create whether it's a live show or
yeah.
whether it's something that's taped.
And
There's
that's
so many people.
collaboration is, one of the reasons I started this podcast. It's just to chat about all
Yeah.
those different areas and how you'll come together and we all make it work. And isn't it so nice when you
Yeah.
can just focus on directing a film because you've got a camera operator,
Yeah.
and just focus on wardrobe because you've got a makeup artist, and all of
Yeah.
those aspects bring it together. But on the flip side, what you were saying earlier about on some of those more independent films and indie films that you work on,
Mhm.
being able to have a bit more creative ownership by doing lots of different
Yeah.
parts of it. So I think there's like joy to be had in both of them,
Yeah.
like both parts of the process. And what would you say is the big question? And what would you say is like your most notable like achievement within the filmmaking industry, like to date? For you, not what
That
other people would say, not like,
yeah.
not what like
Um
one that won a really good award or something, but what do you feel like, okay, that was my career highlight so far of what I've made?
okay. That's so okay. There's like a couple things that I'll
Yeah,
say.
yeah, go for it.
So the first film that I produced, I was up until that point, I only wanted to work in camera
Mhm.
or directing. I really had no interest in producing because I felt like it was putting a lot of women in a box.
Fair.
So I feel like because women are highly organized and really good at those kinds of things where oftentimes more like people, oriented and,
Mhm.
we get shit done basically.
Oh, we
And
do. We do get shit done,
we really
absolutely.
do.
Yeah.
But I just kind of was like, well, because I had a professor and their TA approached me when I was in college and said, I think you'd make a really good producer. And
Mhm.
I was like, ew. Like
You were like,
I was
"How
like,
dare you?"
I know. Like at the time, of course I didn't react like that, but in my head I was like, why? Because I'm a girl,
Yeah,
And I mean, this is a woman, this was like a very notable woman producer.
yeah.
And like, she worked in Hollywood and she's giving me this like attaboy. And I'm like, ew, like it's so ridiculous thinking back to it now because clearly
But
they saw
that's the
something.
preconception you had of what society had kind of put on you.
Yeah, it is. And I just think it's kind of funny because like I do still do camera work and I do
Mm,
still, do directing or assistant directing and I do love those things, but I found
mhm.
out like by necessity basically on that first film we already had the writer was going to be the director for it, so we didn't need me for that. And we have a friend who's an amazing DP.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, obviously I want him to do the camera work,
Yeah,
and, we couldn't find a producer. We didn't have it in the budget for I was originally just gonna AD this film,
yeah.
and we did
You were
not
like,
have a budget.
"Damn it, gonna be me."
Yeah, I know, yeah, it kind of was like we had a call with that professor, ironically, and she was just like, she had given us a couple recommendations, they didn't pan out for one reason or another, and she just says to me like, "Brittany, I think
And you were
it's
like,
gotta be
"Oh."
you." Yeah, and I think I was just like at that point, I just was like, okay, well, if it's best for the film, like we'll see.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll give it my best shot. I haven't ever done this before.
Mhm.
It was kind of we had some tough asks for this film. One of the locations was going to be a tough one to finesse, and
Mhm.
so I was kind of nervous because obviously I'm going to do what it takes, but it was my first time. So I was like, oh man, like, I don't know how this is going to go. And ended up
Mhm.
going really well. Like I was able to get the really hard locations. I saved us quite a bit of money on a lot of just different things throughout the process. And yeah, I'm really proud of that film in general. Like I think it'll always be one of my favorites.
Yeah,
It was a really good film. Um
yeah. What was it
so
called?
yeah, it was
What's it
called
called?
Keep Digging.
Oh, it's that one. Of course it is.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, is it the one I've seen?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was
Yeah,
that
and you
one.
should be proud of that film because yeah, it's great. Is
Yeah.
it still available for people to watch?
Yeah, so we have it right now, we have it up on a Vimeo channel, which is in
Yeah,
my social media. Um,
brilliant.
and
And
then
I'll tag because the Keep Digging movie has its own
yeah.
Instagram as well, so I'll tag that as well so people can find it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can tag both. So now Keep Digging. So now we've kind of made, that was the title of the first film. And now we've kind of made that like our production team name as Keep Digging
Yeah,
Films. So we kind of just try to have those little Easter eggs from the previous films in the next film, just
nice.
with little
Keeping it
one
going.
liners. Yeah, just little one liners. No one else will ever notice it. It's just something for us.
People might now. You've kind of
Oh yeah,
covered
sure.
that in
Maybe I
there.
ruined it.
No, you haven't. You've covered it in there. It's like it's quite exciting sometimes when people can look out for other things, isn't it?
True.
Especially in
Yeah.
short films as well. So
Yeah.
you can do that. But well done for like doing it on your terms, I guess, as well. Like being like, okay,
Yeah.
the opportunity has arose to produce this. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
like you said, best for the film. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. Of course, you're gonna give it your all because that's the kind of person you are. And it worked, and you've enjoyed it. That
Yeah. I think that was kind of like the craziest part about it is like in the middle of it, just me being like, oh, damn, like they were right. Damn, like I am pretty good at this, you know?
yeah, you're like, God damn it, I didn't want to be good. Did your
So,
professor ever do that whole like I told you so? Or did they not?
you know, she's the best. She didn't even
Yeah.
give me the I told you so. She was just kind of like,
Mhm.
yeah, makes
She's
sense.
like, I knew. Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
and do you
know.
know what?
She's
That makes
amazing.
her doesn't that make her a great professor as well? She saw something in you, but she kind of
Yeah.
laid that seed, but also she didn't push you. Again, you have to do it on your
Yeah.
own terms to find out that that's what you wanted to do
Yeah.
and were good at. And talking of doing lots of different jobs,
Yeah.
and jobs that we might not expect to be in, and then we find out we're good at. I never thought I'd produce, to be honest, and I do a lot of producing now as well. So I can
Yeah.
relate, very much can relate to that. And I do think the word producer gets a bit of a bad rep because I do think sometimes people see it as like the boring part
Right. Yeah.
of like the performance industry, like in general, or the
Yeah.
entertainment industry, because it's the logistics, it's the get shit done
Yeah.
side of
Yeah.
things, it's the coordinating. But you've got to be a people person, and you've got to be organized, you've got to be approachable, and you have to connect everyone and everything.
Yeah.
So without it things wouldn't happen. So
I
it's
know.
like, yeah,
I think
it
that's
is.
the thing is like getting past those like preconceived ideas of like what is that role, you know?
Yeah,
And I think like now that I actually understand what that role is, like I
yeah,
do understand what it was that they saw, you know?
yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's just kind of funny how those things happen. Like I do think you're right. I think a lot of times people hear producer and they think one of two things. They either think administrative work, right?
Yeah,
And they're like, oh,
yeah.
they're in the office, they're not,
I just sat
doing
there
anything.
calling people and
Yeah.
emailing people. Yes.
Yeah. So they think it's either that or they just assume that you're just funding the film and that you have no creative input in the film. You're just you're EPing it or something, you
Mhm.
know? But yeah, it's kind of funny how that's not the case. You find out
No.
once you're in it.
And a lot of the time as well, the best producers are people like yourself that have done the other stuff as well. So have
Yeah.
directed, like for example, I've performed. That makes me a better producer because I know what the actors
Yeah.
need. And same with you. You've directed,
Yeah.
you've camera operated, you've been a runner, you've done the costume department, you still do bits of that. That must
Yeah.
inform you as a producer and make you a better
Yeah.
producer. You get
I
what
think
goes into
that.
everything.
Yeah, you get what goes into everything. And then also because I've worked on all these different like projects and in these different areas, now I've collected um contacts, you know.
Yeah.
So now I know more people to reach out for the next film and oh, okay, well, if we can't work with this person, now I have like 2, 3, 4 people in my
Yeah.
head as backups. Well, I know they're good at this, and things like that.
They say, don't they, like a producer is only as good as their contact book a lot of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that's what they say. So you do have to be a people person.
Yes.
You have to be good at building connections. And I am more introverted, especially when I'm like first meeting people and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I'll come out of my little shell a bit, and then I'm a certified yapper,
So
but
they can't
yeah,
put you back in the shell. They can't.
it's so
You're like,
true.
I'm here, work with me, remember me.
Remember me.
Yeah, yes, remember me. Here I am. And to kind of like bring us towards like the end of our conversation today. We've spoken about, again, you doing a lot of different parts of filmmaking and the world and the industry that you work, live and breathe. And what's the weirdest, oddest job you think you've ever done in your life? Now, this could be your craft or it can be your kind of in between jobs. And one of those moments where you just thought like, where am I? Like, what is this? What led me here? What am I doing?
Oh, I feel like I don't even know what's odd anymore. That might sound crazy, but like, I'm like, I don't even know what's an odd job. Like, I feel like, I've been working since I was 14.
Yeah.
So I've had like lots of different jobs. And I think like, unless you grew up in the area where I did, where it's like, it's so seasonal, you have from like Mother's Day to, maybe the last few weekends in September to make your money for the year. So
Mm-hmm.
you grow up with that like hustler mentality. You grow up
Yeah.
like my first on the books job, I was 14. And before that, I was babysitting for, cash. So why is that every girl's like first job?
Yeah, literally. I
Yeah.
think a paper round came just before that for me, a paper round.
Yeah, that's so cool. I feel like I would have been very proud to say I had a paper route.
Really? Oh, like not seen as a cool job here. It was like you were like embarrassed. Like if you were wheeling
Were
your
you?
like high vis trolley along with all of your, because we didn't like, it's not like in the American movies where they're cycling along throwing the paper at the door.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
we had to post them, Brittany. We had to like, and it was hundreds of them in this trolley. After school, you were tired from school. You had to wheel trolley along up and walk up to everyone's front door and post it through the letterbox because again, we don't have post boxes at the end of our drive.
Right. I forget that.
On the door. It's like right at the front door.
Okay, yeah, I would have hated that.
See, so your paper rounds are a lot cooler than if I could have just cycled through papers at doors.
Yeah,
that would have been great. But no.
I don't even. It's so funny because like I remember always seeing that in the movies growing up, and I was like, oh, that's such a cool job, But I don't know anyone that had to pay. Like I feel like that was like well before my time that people had paper rounds.
Even exist anymore in the US. Like
I don't think so. Like, we have the post office, we have Amazon. Like
I don't think it exists anymore here now. Maybe in like rural places, but not.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to your journey. So you babysat from like 13, 14, and then
then I was like a lifeguard, and then I worked. I was a lifeguard for several years. I
think I knew you when you were a lifeguard. Yeah,
I was. Like, first of all, that's kind of crazy that you have like 16-year-olds like being a lifeguard when you think about it. Like,
I just see you like come home in your little uniform and yeah.
I love my little Baywatch suit.
Yeah. I mean, you look great. You did. I always remember actually because you're, a bit older than me. And when I was a young, younger teenager, I remember being like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. She's a lifeguard.
Oh. I was definitely not cool in my school, but
I thought you were. So
yes, I'm glad I had the impression. I can just tell people, I was big, like in England,
Yes. Big in England. My one friend that came to visit me from England, she was a big deal. She thought I was
I was pretty big deal to her.
You were. And like for me as well, like, going back to that time, as like 15, 16, I came back the year after, didn't I, for the summer? I think that's why I'm in your lifeguard attire. It was like I got a yellow school bus to school and I had a locker. That was just wild. That
I know. Yeah. It's so funny. Like it's funny thinking about like the difference. Like you guys thought the yellow school bus was so crazy, but I thought the double-decker bus that you were taking was so crazy, I was like, this is nuts.
The nuances. And the little individual desks that you all had
Oh,
we
yeah.
just sat around massive desks or like twos. I was like,
Yeah,
hang
in
on.
twos.
I do remember though, when I first walked into that, I think it was like history and geography or something, my first lesson at your school. And I was like, how do I get into this? Like, I didn't know that it like opened up and I was trying to like shove my body like in the desk.
I know. It's so funny. Like it's so weird when you think back to that. Like I don't even know what the inside of a school looks like now. You know, like maybe they don't even
Yeah.
have those desks anymore. Like I would have no clue.
Well, I can tell you that because I work in sometimes workshops and things that I run. And in the
Yeah.
UK, schools look pretty much the same as they used to.
Yeah.
So I can imagine they probably look quite similar in the US. I don't think schools change that drastically, do they?
Yeah. I guess they probably don't really get the funds to be able to do that,
No,
do they?
no. And talking of
That's
like the
sad.
fun, like I know we've gone off topic with the odd jobs there, but I feel like life.
Oh yeah.
It's a brilliant job. It's not really an odd one, but it's a great one that you had.
Yeah.
I would really love to like just touch on the kind of differences between like the UK art scene and the US
Yeah.
art scene. Like, how is it in general there for you with like funding, the government? Do you feel like there's like support for the arts?
I think unfortunately right now there's a lot of attacking of the arts right now.
Mhm.
Um well, attacking of a lot of things in general, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't want to
we
get
know.
banned on Meta for saying that, but yeah.
No, yeah.
um, but yeah, like I think there's definitely a huge call for the arts. We all know how important these stories are and like how important sharing different ideas and different stories. You know,
Mhm.
that's the thing that I love about indie. You know, in Hollywood, there's a lot of recycling going on.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's fine. It's cool to have like escapism films. And if you want to go on with these franchise ideas, like, cool, go for it. You know, it's going
Mhm.
to create a lot of jobs for people out in LA and whatnot. So that's great. But I'm more interested in hearing from voices and people that, you know, I haven't heard from before. I want to hear
Mhm.
unique stories. I want to watch things that are going to break my heart or, you know, get me excited about something. I just want to hear new stuff. So I think it's super important. And I hope people keep making films. I hope eventually there's a platform for short film.
Mhm.
Because that's the thing right now. Like there's a thing called Film Hub that you can
Mhm.
submit your stuff to and you can try to get like self-distributed, right? So I think we've made like $1.32 so far on Keep Digging. I don't even know what streaming site it's on. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But a couple people have watched it somewhere, so that's cool.
Oh, well, I
But
actually, when I Googled keep digging, I was doing a little research. Obviously, I know you, but I was doing a little bit of my own research as well, like
yeah,
professionally, because we know each other socially mainly.
yeah.
And one of the websites said it was because I was looking, there was all these streaming platforms that it was on. None of them were UK. I was literally like, I don't know, I don't. But then there was Apple
Yeah.
TV.
It's on
Apple
Apple
TV.
TV?
Well, I feel like
Wow.
you need to check it out. It actually is because I was just Googling. I've got Apple TV at home, so I feel like I'm going to have a look when I get in. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I know that one. You know, like I can have
Yeah.
that one. But other ones, I think you guys have a lot more streaming platforms than we do.
Okay.
And like a lot more. Like we don't have Hulu and that kind of thing. Like those just don't exist here.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you guys have a lot more networks. So there was about 20, and then in there was Apple TV, and that was like the one that I was like, oh,
That is
everyone
so
could access
crazy.
that.
Yeah,
So
I'm
not,
gonna have to really look because the last time that we looked at it, I couldn't even tell you the name of the website. Like it was something I'd never heard of, but I was like,
yeah.
okay, cool, whatever. You
And
know?
it might have been me going digging too deep and getting caught in some sort of other algorithm or something else that was called keep digging, or I don't know.
True. Yeah, because
But
that's the thing. Who knows?
I know, but first having a look, But yeah, I completely agree with what you said. Like, I feel like a lot of artists here in the UK feel the same. We feel that you want to give a
Yeah.
platform for those. Well, I certainly do, those unsung heroes, those, unheard
Yeah.
voices, underrepresented communities. A lot of work that I do is within that. And I'm just super
Yeah.
passionate about it. And I think the world
Yeah.
needs people like me and you that can advocate for those
Yeah.
people, and kind of stand with and create with, rather than
Yeah.
creating for. I think there's a
Yeah.
difference, isn't
A
there?
big difference. Yeah. A
Yeah.
huge difference.
And like, funding wise in the US, like, is there readily
Yeah.
available funding? Like, we've got the Arts Council England, so we will
Right.
apply for funding grants to get work done. That is just one to name of many funders, but they're
Yeah.
the kind of the big one that you can get accredited funding for to kind of build your project.
Yeah. So that's kind of the other part that's like I mentioned, that's being
Mhm.
attacked a little bit right now. So the the government will cut funding for the arts before anything else.
Same.
That's something, yeah, that's something you can guarantee.
Yeah, same.
And unfortunately in my state specifically, they really they there's just a lot of weird stuff going on right now in
Yeah,
my state.
yeah.
And so a lot of grants and things that you could have applied for to get
Mhm.
funding for any kind of arts program, whether it was like a theater show, a film or anything. A lot of those programs have been, either defunded or just slashed. And so you
Mhm.
have so many organizations, let alone, people trying to fund their personal projects, all vying for like the same small little crumb.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's a little dicey right now for people.
Still
Personally,
uncertain. Yeah.
yeah, definitely uncertain. I personally have never I've never looked for a grant. I've never done like a GoFundMe for a film.
Mhm.
I've never done like they have a thing called Indiegogo. I've never done that. Like the films that I've been a part of have all been self-funded. So
Mhm.
that goes back to what I was saying. Some people buy a
Yeah.
house, other people, maybe they make
Fund their
films or
passion.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
they fund their passion. So um yeah, so that's kind of how the funding is here. Now, I will say if like if people with money, because I know some
Mhm.
people that I've worked with before, don't have a story, right? Either they find someone that has a story that they've written and they aren't a filmmaker, but they just have a lot of money and they want to make a film. So then
Mhm.
they'll either write a story for them or they'll take the story that they wrote and direct something for them. So
Mhm.
that's one way I think some people try to work around getting the funds to make a film.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I don't know if a lot of people are going to agree with this, but I don't really think that you need to spend $100,000 on a film.
Mhm.
I think that I mean, you're going to have to make your budget really tight. You're going to have
Yeah.
to be good at producing, but I mean, we're about to do our third short film, and I think this one we're hoping to stay around 10,000.
That's amazing.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's doable. Now, again, it's a short film. We're not
Yeah.
talking about a feature length film, but
Mhm.
I still don't think I think that if you're smart about your resources, you don't have to have $150,000 or $100,000 to be able to make a film.
Yeah.
And I think that more people who are getting into this industry need to learn, like, they first of all, they need to hear someone say, like, yeah, you can do this with a small budget. And
And they're
I think,
hearing you say it now, Brittany, like you're being
yeah.
that person. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think they just need to learn how to work with a micro budget. It's possible, if you can, and I'm not advocating that everyone should go do this, but if people could shoot a film on an iPhone, and there have been lots of great examples of people that have done that, then I don't see why you need an astronomical budget in order to fund your passion. Like, you can
Yeah.
make it work. And as long as your story is solid,
Mm.
I think the other things are going to fall into place. So focus on getting a story that's solid. So
And
that'd be my advice.
such a lovely way to kind of end our conversation today.
Yeah.
A really valuable nugget of advice and from your lived experience as well
Yeah.
of saying that. And yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that it was probably the case and that it's similar in the US as to here, as to
Yeah.
funding isn't great for the arts, and it is the first thing that no matter what government gets in, or
Yeah.
what president or what prime minister gets in, it will always be the first thing, unfortunately, to fall away. And
Yeah.
yourself, myself, people listening to this podcast know that that's not right, and that we
No,
need
it's
art to
crazy.
live.
Studies show so much like
Yeah,
how impactful the arts are to people's daily lives. Like we need the
yeah,
arts. Like, isn't it so crazy that that's the first thing that goes?
it
Like,
is. And it's, you know, I always think back to, and I don't want to use the dreaded word COVID because we're
yeah,
so past that, but what did people
yeah,
consume during that time? Everyone was locked into watching, listening, consuming,
yeah,
and then when things weren't able to pick back up with the arts, there was a huge gap, and things are only just
getting
completely
back. Yeah.
going back to where they were, and
Oh yeah.
almost on a stranger times as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's really great to hear from you with your lived experience within the industry, saying, look, like, if you want to, you can. You just got to have
Yeah.
that passion. You know, you don't need to
Yeah.
get the hundreds of thousands of pounds from the fund.
Yeah.
Just try with what you've got, see what happens,
Yeah.
and
Just
like
see what
the
happens.
rest could follow, basically.
Yeah. I think like that's the thing. Just focus on getting a really solid story because you can,
Yeah.
especially if you have friends that are in the arts as well. Like, I think all of us want to be a part of making something fucking cool, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like,
100%.
I'd say that's where the focus should be, like, I think I'm also, I will say the one caveat with that is pay everyone. Just that's where
Oh,
the majority of my budget like and
yeah.
I feel very passionate about this because sometimes when you
Paying
go to
them.
festivals or you talk to other people like they want to focus on maybe getting big names in, right? So they'll, or a bigger name, even if it's not like A
Mhm.
list,
Yeah, yeah.
they want to focus their money on that as opposed to paying everybody. I will never, ever post grad, like since graduation, like we're not in college anymore, kids. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not having an intern on my set. Everyone on my set's going to be paid. And if I have to make it where everyone gets the same rate, in order to make it fair and, or something like that, but just pay everybody. I can finesse a location,
Yeah.
but if I'm going to have someone spend 10 hours, 12 hours out of their day on my set, like, it should A, be an enjoyable experience and B, they should be getting paid to be here. Like their time's
And
just as valuable.
I feel, I feel very passionate about that as well. And actually, someone I was talking
Yeah.
to before I spoke to you, we were talking about how she had her own theatre company and she was always so fair with paying people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, within the arts, it's not linear, and there's not like a standard rate. And like, it's so refreshing to hear you say that. And
Yeah.
I see casting call outs all the time that are like, it's not even student film, it's just unpaid film. And you're like,
Yeah.
why are you not paying your actors?
Yeah.
Why are you not paying your runners? Or why? And absolutely, like you said, like if you're
Yeah.
paying them as well, not only are you respecting them, they're going to respect you more and you're going to get better quality. You're probably going to spend
Yes.
less time on the film and less money in the long run because you're just getting shit
Yeah.
done there and then. Everyone knows why they're there. And it's like,
Yeah.
works, doesn't it?
Yeah. And like you don't have to have this massive budget, but if everyone knows they're getting paid, fairly, if they're getting paid something,
Yeah.
I think like I think they'll give a fuck about your film too,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pay us.
You do want
and we
that.
care. Miraculous.
Yeah.
Like,
Miraculous. Yeah.
it's like not rocket science, isn't it? Pay me
I
and I'll get
know.
a little bit more invested. Literally.
Yeah. I'll have a little bit more of a pep in my step when I'm, getting coffee for someone.
Everyone is a better person when they know they've got money coming into the bank for like their hard earned talent and will to do something.
I think that's something like a lot of people don't talk about, like they're long hours, right? It's not your 9 to 5,
No.
your day on set is gonna be long, right? And that's okay as long as the like the energy is good, like the vibes are good, and you're getting paid for it, right? You won't mind that you're there for, 10 to 12 hours.
No.
But,
And because you've got that energy and everyone's in it together, and you know that it's fair and ethical, and
it's just such like a team. It is an actual team at that point,
Yeah.
So
100%.
I don't know. That's my thoughts.
I love those thoughts. And before we wrap up today, I always love to end the podcast with like a bit of a shout out, just because the whole point of this is to hype each other up, to support each other, chat about what we love, and just shine a light on all of the areas of the arts. So is there anyone or anything, like project wise, that you want to shout about on the podcast before we wrap up today?
Oh yeah. So I guess just a few little things. Right now we're showing our film Just One Last Thing in film festivals. So yeah, if you could make it to any of the festivals that we're at, I mean, obviously you guys are all probably in the UK. But if we
US listeners,
okay, yeah, maybe if some of the
you'll bring a few more in, Brittany. You'll bring a few more in.
True. Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, so it'd be cool to show people that film. Eventually it'll be probably up on like YouTube or something, some kind of streaming service once we're done with like the festival tour.
Maybe Apple TV.
Yeah, maybe Apple TV. I had no idea. And then we're getting ready to shoot our next film. I think right now the working title is Change for 100. So we'll see if it stays that. I'll update you guys if it changes. And I mean, I'm open. I'm trying to stay booked and busy this year. So if anyone needs a producer, an AD, a PM, wardrobe,
Britt is
whatever.
your girl. She is there for it.
Yeah, drop me a line. I'm looking for work.
Love that. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a lush conversation today, and I feel like we could keep going. And
I know, right?
We'll come back for some sort of part 2. We've already discussed about a little nuance that we can do on part 2. So that's super exciting. But until next time, thank you for being an incredible part of the art over in the US. And just keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for coming on.
Love. Yeah. Nice talking to you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Part of the Arts. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the others, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Also, we would love it if you could support this passion project by buying us a coffee. All the info is below. Thank you, and see you next time.